A happy Saturday to everybody. This is Your Questions, Your Money, Your Business here on the Fox Business Network. I'm Dagan McDowell.
And I'm Tracy Burns, and in this hour we're looking at your small business, your big business, any of your entrepreneurial ideas. Call us. We have amazing people here to help you get your, what is it? Get the blue flame going out of your butt, John Rutledge says, and start your own business. So call us, 877-249-9626. You can always email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. All right, and our small business owner for this hour is a man who turned his passion into a business. Michael Bray owns a chain of toy and hobby shops. Michael, this is very cool, very near and dear to my heart. I got 3 little kids at home. The toys outweigh the people by like a kabillion to 1 most days. So
Good
tell us
you.
how you, yeah, I guess. I have to step over things as I walk in. Tell us how you got started and how you're doing.
Well, we're getting started. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Thank you. Sorry, where are we now?
Welcome to television, Michael. Welcome to TV.
Happy Saturday.
Sorry about that.
At least your bra strap's not showing. I had that problem earlier, so.
Thank God. No, I'll start with how we're doing now. This is a tough time for any retailer. It's a tough economy, but we realized at the end of 2008 that we really were going to have to tighten our belts. And my guys have done a great job of doing that, cutting expenses in all different ways, including payroll, without affecting customer service. So we're in a pretty good place here, getting ready, stocking up, getting ready for the end of the third and the fourth quarter.
One of the major issues, being in the retail business in this past week, is the fact that CIT Group is on the ropes, on the verge of bankruptcy, no more additional help from the government. And people want to know, how has that impacted your business, if at all? But even if it has had no direct impact on your own financing and borrowing, how do you see it playing out among retailers and suppliers?
Well, we don't do business with CIT. In fact, a number of years ago, we moved to do business with a small local bank because we wanted a much more personal relationship. So the CIT failure doesn't affect me directly. But I think there's no question it's going to add to the sort of overall chilling effect of small business lending in general.
Michael, we have seen a lot of retailers par their inventory back so dramatically over these last few months to the point where there's probably none left. So they're at a point where they have to start building up their inventories again. That means they're going to go out there, they're going to be looking for credit. I know you're not affected by CIT, but have you been affected at all by this whole credit mess? Are you finding money still accessible?
Well, like I said, we have a long-standing relationship with the bank. We do have a working capital line, and in the toy business, the toy and hobby business, we're a very fourth quarter-based business, right. And this is the time of year when we are intensely building up our inventory. We are finding that it's a little bit tougher to get our working capital line, but fortunately we're able to use other things, vendor supplied financing, extended terms, and things like that to stock our shelves. I have noticed exactly what you're talking about with these shrinking inventories, and I've always been of the opinion as a retailer that if you go into your busy season, whatever time of year that might be, with a thin inventory, then you're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. So one of the things I've never done is pull back. Whenever I think all the other retailers are pulling back, that's probably when I actually pull the trigger and make sure that we are very well stocked for Christmas. Because when you get to that last 2 weeks before Christmas and you can't call a vendor up and get an order, the guy who has the inventory wins.
Right. Michael, but you also help mom and pop shops get started in the hobby business as well. What are you seeing in terms of interest, willingness, demand to get into business?
Well, one of your guests earlier said it very well, and Senator Santorum said it well. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and that prevents people from pulling the trigger on things. But to a limited extent with mom and pop shops, that's offset by people getting layoffs, people taking early buyouts either from the government or from a big company, and then using that money to say, okay, here I am. I no longer have the 9-to-5 job. What have I always wanted to do? And going out and starting a business of their own, no matter what it is. And we're seeing a surprising amount of that, more than I would have expected.
Michael, we got to jump in a couple seconds to join our radio listeners, but quickly, I'm a mother of 3. I haven't cut out buying toys yet. Are you seeing that at all? Are you seeing a cutback quickly from parents of the world?
Sure. You know, we're seeing it starting to come back a little bit. My business is a very early indicator. This is stuff that's real easy to cut out, but as you said, it's hard to hold back for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's hard to say no to those cuties, I got to tell you. I'm a sucker.
You know, it's...
and Michael thanks you for being a sucker.
I know, for being a sucker.
Right now,
I sure do.
right now, it's 6 minutes after the hour, and time to welcome folks listening on Sirius XM Radio. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with Tracy Burns. Your questions, your money on the Fox Business Network and your business.
And your entrepreneurial spark. I love this part of the show. So call us 877-249-9626. You can always email your questions to yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
We've been talking to Michael Bray, president of the Bray Corporation, who runs a chain of toy and hobby shops. Again, also helps others get into that very business. And we're focusing on business. So get those calls coming in. Pick up the phone. Our illustrious panel for the next hour. Let's just welcome them all. Venture capitalist of the hour, Don Rainey, is here. You know him if you've been watching, partner at Grow Tech Ventures. Also joining us, Julie Rame, branding expert. Julie, how many companies have you not worked for? Chrysler, Walmart, Ford are three of the companies where you were
Chief
marketing chief. Great of you to be here. And as always, Dani Babb is here, and along with John Rutledge to answer any question that you might have about business and lending. CIT, that's a very important
Big
issue.
week for you, Dani.
For
me?
Yeah, we got a lot of questions, I'm sure, for you.
We have a lot of questions by ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
And we already have a question, actually. Roman is a business owner and has a question now on the phone. Roman, are you on the phone with us?
Yes.
Go ahead, Roman.
How are you?
Good.
My name is Roman Vinfeld. I'm the CEO of Interface Talent Network. We're a talent marketing company out of Connecticut and New Jersey. Between my two offices, I employ 360 people. My payroll is about $170,000 a week. And this new, I pay my employees very well. We don't have anybody that works for minimum wage for us. I offer a health care plan, but the employees choose to subsidize it themselves if they choose to partake in it. Now, the majority of my employees tend to be younger, and a lot of them don't feel that they need, health care at this time, and it's their choice. I have a manager that works for me that was partaking in the plan for 2 years. She never got sick. She decided not to do it, take that money that she was, putting aside and put it in an account and use it, if she gets sick. With this health care plan that they're, planning to pass, it's going to force small business owners like me to, I'm going to have to offer it because I can't afford to pay 8% weekly, tax on my payroll, especially in this recession where the margins are already low. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go to my employees and say, hey, guys, we're either all going to go out of business or everybody is going to have to take a lower salary. And if you like it, great. And if not, I understand that also. So what they're going to, and I don't think I'm the only one that's going to be doing this. Small business owners are going to have to make these decisions. And, what can we do to let these people understand that they're not just going to, tax the rich, but they're affecting small business owners, and not just small business owners, but their employees that are going to have their salaries lowered and cut. Because that's the only way that we're going to be able to pay for this realistically.
Roman, people are listening, even lawmakers, even the Democratic lawmakers, some of them are listening. So is John Rutledge. John, what are you telling?
I think Roman is right on target with this. The small business owners don't get much play in Washington. You don't have Learjets. You don't give big lobby contributions. The tax increase this week announced with the health bill will double the capital gains rate and triple the dividend tax rate and add a surtax on to the business owners that provide 80% of the revenues at the top end. The only thing you can pay your workers is what they produce. It's driven by their productivity, not by the federal government. So if they lay a new cost on you, it's going to net come out of the workers or out of your customers. And I think that's really important, Roman. Your 360 people times all the small businesses in Connecticut and New Jersey is way more important than General Electric or any of the other giant companies. It's the fabric of the entire place. We struggle all week long with people who are having trouble getting financing, paying taxes, and living inside the regulations. So hang in there, you're a hero, but they're not making it easy for you.
Let's jump to Michael. I mean, let's get a small business perspective on this. How will this affect you and your payroll and your people on a weekly basis?
Well, you know, one of the things about this that's being proposed that I think people need to remember is that it cut across everybody. The situation I'm in, we provide health insurance for our employees and have done it. I've been very proud to say to my employees for 15 years that the health plan we offer them is the very one the president of the company and his family are on. But I can't say that for all my competitors. I'm competing in an arena of mom and pops against many businesses that choose not to offer any plan whatsoever to their employees. So on some level, I'm happy that the playing field for me will be leveled a little bit because I'm already trying to be a good citizen. Right now, I'm being penalized for doing that.
It's coming out of his pocket. He's right.
Right. He's doing the right thing, but the costs are. Don, I want you to weigh in here on this discussion.
It's awfully hard. I mean, you know, it's one more load on a very important mule in this economy, and it's a shame to see it coming down this way. Small business creates the jobs. Small business drives a lot of the innovation, and this is one more load on it. By the same token, though, we have societally this major health insurance problem. We have to figure out how to get it done, and I do think that there is real risk today of painting with too broad a brush and saddling with more burden the people that we really don't need saddled.
But you know, Julie, it's going to start to come out of somewhere. I mean, if I got to pay for all this health care, I'm probably not going to have the money to market. I'm not going to have the money to come up with new ideas, so R&D goes down the tube. So this affects everything. That means less products coming to market. The ripple effect could be very big.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern with all of this is the lack of innovation. I mean,
right.
We get into a big cycle on that outside of the marketing realm, so I'll stick to what I know best. But when it comes to innovation and marketing, it's the lifeblood, I think, of what has made so many small businesses turn into medium-sized businesses, turn into large-sized businesses. And you're right, one of the very first things that gets cut, even though, you know, my ears perked up when I heard what Michael does with talent and marketing and entertainment, he's probably more sensitive to maintaining that budget than many other companies that really aren't marketing driven, where they're more finance driven or manufacturing driven, and therefore marketing is really seen as an expense item, which is one of the first things to go. What typically we see with marketing driven companies when they're faced with this kind of pinch is that they do cut into innovation or they start to outsource. And so these terrific people that he has full time, you know, my fear is that you start to let some of those go and you outsource. Not that outsourcing is a bad thing, but when you've built a great team and you know that this is your core and you want to grow from there, it'd be great to outsource in addition to keeping the people, not having to cut the people and then outsource them.
Right.
Dani, but again, and Michael makes a valid point that the House proposal with the 8% tax is alarming on businesses that don't provide health care. But how do you level the playing field and make it fair for him because he chooses to provide it, but also make it fair for other small business owners?
Well, my personal opinion is that the marketplace.
You also talk to small business owners, dozens, scores of them every day, probably.
Yeah, a lot of them are saying is, well, we're going to review the IRS's rules and we're going to determine who we can make a contractor, and so we have a smaller amount of people that are considered employees. So I'm hearing that happen more often. I don't think there is an easy solution for this. I also don't think that we need to necessarily level the playing field. I think that the marketplace will dictate where people want to work, and if you're talented enough and you're motivated enough to go work for a company that's going to give you outstanding benefits, then you do it. And if you need to work for a company or you prefer to work for a company that doesn't, you choose to do that, and it's all about personal choice. And every business owner has a right to determine for themselves what they're going to offer their team.
I have an idea. Just make everybody buy their own insurance, and how about unburdening business, period? Don't get rid of the tax break for businesses. Just unburden businesses. You want to just make it this incredibly productive business world. You do that and just make the individual responsible for it. Of course, that's not being discussed in Freudian slip, discussed in Washington.
And just use a health savings account. The vehicle is out there. I mean, it just. If only we ruled the world, John.
Yep.
Impressive they are. I'm talking about the panel of people who are here for you today. So please get on the phone. Call us, email us. The phone number is Give it to him, Tracy Burns. You know it by heart.
877-249-9626. I blanked. I almost gave you my home phone number. We're awake on Saturday morning, sorta. We'll be right back.
Right off of my feet. Come on, shake it, baby. Shake it, baby. Shake it up now, baby.
Hey, happy Saturday. We're going to jump right to the phones and start taking some calls. I think Leon's on the phone from Maryland. Hey, Leon.
Hey, good morning, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. I have a question. 35 years as a successful business owner, small business certainly. Time for me to retire, I think. But here's the question. Do I go somewhere where we don't face all of these income taxes, sales taxes, and other sundry ways to empty our savings in our pockets, or do I stay here and fight it out? For instance, maybe Grand Cayman or something like that. And it's a serious question I've been pondering for 2 years.
Leon, before you hang up, are you going to sell the business?
The business would continue. I wouldn't let the people down that are in it. The business would continue, and it's just my own interest in it that right. I'd sell. That's right.
What kind of business is it?
It's furniture and appliances, carpeting, floor coverings, bedding, and so forth.
Okay. We've got people to answer.
I mean, Dani, a lot of people
are asking this question.
Yeah.
We've been getting this the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Personally, I would move to where I wanted to live and not let it be tax-driven, but that's far easier said than done, particularly in this climate. One thing that you might want to consider, Leon, is getting a second home in another state that is a lower tax burden and living there for 6 months and 1 day out of the year, which might help cut your taxes significantly and allow you to still have the home in the city that your business has been built in.
But, John, these states are broke. So even though they don't have a state tax now, who's to say we're not going to see a state tax in, say, Florida someday, who can't afford to pay for all the hurricanes that come flying through?
Well, definitely, but you can also move again when that happens and put the money in your pocket in the meantime. Some states have it built into their state constitution. Wyoming constitutionally cannot have an income tax.
Right.
It's colder than hell in Wyoming, but they can't have an income tax. But basically, you fly somewhere in the Caribbean, and it's no farther than flying to one of these 6 tax-free states that we've got. And protecting your money from taxation is huge. Somehow the rich have been singled out as this evil in our world. And between surtaxes and income tax hikes and the like, it's going to be tough. Your biggest problem, Leon, though, or your timing issue, is that the market for selling interests in businesses has really gone flat. And it's gone flat because leverage finance shut down a year and a half ago. CIT is actually one of the larger lenders to buying pieces and whole businesses in the small and middle market, and that's going to put a quiet spell in there too. So I wouldn't want to sell that interest until next year or the year after, when you'll get 1 or 2 multiples more price on cash flow than you will this year. But I'd be looking hard at moving where I can put the money in your pocket. Absolutely.
Michael, Leon is actually calling from your neck of the woods, and you're in business. How are you coping with, or any changes that you are making in the face of what could be a changing tax code?
Well, that's part of being in business. It happens all the time. You just have to be aware of it and pay attention to it. I agree with Senator Santorum about the uncertainty all of these different things going on create. But that's not new to this administration or this, we've had, since I've been in business, 2 Democrats and 2 Republican presidents, so you just have to be ready for it. You have to deal with it. And certainly I live in Maryland, which is a state I think that has a little bit higher tax rate than a lot of others. You just have to live with it and find ways to work with it. I mean, people live in Maryland. They spend money in Maryland. So I have to have stores in Maryland.
Right.
Yeah.
I know if you own and operate retail stores, you're not going to shut the whole thing down just because your taxes go up.
No,
but again,
we have stores.
But again, the hard part for smaller mom and pops is they can't afford top of the line. tax help or investment advice. And so we got these ever-changing variables out there that it's just very hard to plan for.
Luckily, there's help out there like
us.
And lots of websites where,
Yeah, I know,
where a
it's
lot
free.
of accountants are jumping in and actually offering free advice.
That's very
it's awesome.
true.
It's
That's
awesome.
very true. And as a matter of fact, coming up, we got a small business owner who wants to improve her marketing. Guess who's here to help her? And she wants to sell more products.
Julie Rame is here selling it. She's going to help her. Stick around. Welcome back, everybody. The Summer of Opportunity, the network of opportunity here on Fox Business. We're answering your questions about your business. And I just wanted to follow up with Julie Rame and Don Rainey on the question that we got from Leon about moving to lower tax states. Don, first, because you deal with so many businesses, either the ones you've invested in or looking at, are those businesses being started in lower tax states? Or because most people have said that they still see businesses being started up right in the heart of California, which is burdensome, to say the least.
People that hadn't thought about it are thinking about it. I mean, you look at this and you say, Florida, we use as an example, Wyoming. It's such an advantage. And if you're coming into a cycle that we're entering where taxes are going to be higher and higher and higher, and probably crossing that mythical 50% boundary, I think any entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs as a class are bright and thoughtful people about their tax burden and where the money goes, and that's what they get up every day to do. And I think if we haven't seen it, and if we're not seeing it at Business Creations today, we will soon. I think people would have to look at it for where they're moving a business. The 6-month requirement, people are dutifully meeting it. I know of a few people that have really made the decision to live half the year somewhere where the tax advantage just makes it compelling.
But Julie, you talked about the talent pool. Don't you want to go where the talent pool is? I mean, if the talent pool is in Silicon Valley and not Florida, do I just suck it up and pay the high taxes?
So yes and no. I mean, I think that you do want to have the talent pool, but there's so many businesses being run by remote now where it helps to have people in a broad array of places where you don't have to have them literally 5 miles from your business central. I was, during the break, giving you the example that my parents, who are young, I mean, they're 60 years old, who sold their house in Seattle and everything there, and they moved to, yes. There, I was like nothing. I mean, they were like... side of Panama City is on a golf course. So to Danny's point, live where you want to live, what makes you happy. But they also were very sensible. They saw it as the new Costa Rica in terms of tax benefits. And so now he manages my LLC from an operations standpoint from there. And, you know, they're happy. They come back here once a quarter. It's to, you know, to your point, it's no longer a flight than going from Seattle to D.C. You know, in fact, it's shorter.
And another quick note, too, is that there's a myth that you have to have a virtual online company to be able to manage your team remotely. My team is in California in a brick-and-mortar location, and I live in New York City, and we do just fine managing using technology, which is, my company's not a virtual company. You know, we do some work online, but it's not a virtual company.
But with video
But you better hire good people.
Awesome people. That's absolutely important.
But John, with video conferencing and all that out these days, it makes perfect sense.
Sure, you can. And by the way, people are wondering which states are we talking about? Washington, Wyoming, Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, New Hampshire, Florida are zero tax states, all with wrinkles in their tax codes. But that money can be your seed capital for getting something started. And 2 of those places are in tremendous real estate depressions, which means you can go and buy locations now for nothing by taking them off the hands of someone in bankruptcy.
Nevada and Florida.
So Nevada and Florida, they're going to see huge influxes of people.
And those state governments would likely welcome businesses, right? If
they like entrepreneurs there.
No, but if you come in and say, a lot of states have programs to give you grants or tax abatement if you're going to move a business to the state, and this would be a good time to show up on those doorsteps today.
You can start a business in a high-tax state if you think you're going to lose money in the short run.
Right.
That's what Alan was saying.
Right, and then in the long run, you move.
You move out. All right.
When you feel the pain, you move.
Absolutely.
I still like Julie's parents' idea. Hope you're watching. More answers to your questions ahead, so call us, 877-249-9626. You can always email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
Up next, how to boost sales through new marketing techniques. Selling it. Straight ahead, here on the Fox Business Network. Selling it. I'm Dagan McDowell. This is Your Questions, Your Money. We're throwing out the pitch for this hour, and we're doing selling it. We get a lot of questions from viewers, and this will speak for itself in my lap. Biz in a box. We get a lot of questions from viewers who have a product, but they want to take their sales to the next level, really build a brand, market it more aggressively. So today, we do have some answers. Today's entrepreneur is Melissa Rose. Welcome, Melissa. She's president of Box Production. She wants to learn new marketing techniques so she can boost sales of Biz in a Box. And Julie Rame, who has been marketing chief
forever,
Walmart, Chrysler, you name it. You're going to be talking to Julie. So, Melissa, just fill us in on what Biz in a Box is, and also what you want to know from Julie.
Well, thank you first for having me on the show. Biz in a Box is really an interactive step-by-step guide that teaches kids from the age of 7 on up how to start and run a business in the real world using the practical fundamentals. So it's designed to let them explore their creativity, to take full ownership of their business. It's not something that's designed to have mom and dad working on it with them. It's more of an independent, it's not even a project, it's really about starting their own business with a product that they can actually take to the marketplace and do it in a way that they learn these skills and they can apply it really a lot more easily than most.
Yeah, I was just looking, Dagan's taking apart the Biz in a Box, which is great.
Pardon for the crinkle sound, if you can hear it. I was taking it out of the box.
The materials that you have in here look to be a portfolio of sorts, and I think I read that it had a receipt holder calculator in it. It had a little guidebook. And I think I also had read somewhere that you had 3 different phases, and it was really geared towards kids ages 7 to 18. Is that correct? Can you give me a little bit more about your target audience and then the difference between your 3 offerings?
Absolutely. The first kid is CEO Prodigy, and that's for ages 7 through 10. And then we have CEO Apprentice, which is 11 through 14. And then the CEO is 15 on up. And basically the difference in each kid is the workbook and the content that's given to them. So, of course, the attention span and how a younger child of 7 or 8 is going to understand their competition or their target markets or their marketing is going to be different than a 15 or a 16-year-old. And so each one is a step to the next level, getting more involved with how they go. The workbooks are the main component, and they're there to easily help the young entrepreneur to structure their business, from finding out who their competition is, who their target markets are, and then creating messages, and the workbook helps them with this, is creating messages that communicate with their target markets. So they're not out there kind of fledgling on, oh, now what do I do? I've learned a theory, but now I don't know how to apply it. Once they complete the workbook for all 3 levels, that becomes their business plan. They can present it to an investor, get the capital that they need, and really, it's designed more for them to grab their keys, get out the door, and learn how to apply these new skill sets and knowledge.
That's great. No, that is perfect. I think, first of all, I applaud you for the effort. I'm involved with a lot of different people who are writing a lot of different types of books on education, even homeschooling, and I think it is because there is a lack of satisfaction that certain skills are being taught, so this is a terrific effort. One question I have,
thank you.
Yes, one question I had for you with regard to just your approach is, I know that I read that you were keeping it away from computers because you didn't want it to be seen as a computer game. I get that. But today, in this world, kids don't know anything besides a computer, and not necessarily for gaming only, but actually as a very useful tool. And so I guess my question, and And a bit of, I don't want it to be a leading question, but it's a bit of a concern that I'd love you to get me over, is why is there not a component maybe at the apprentice level or at the CEO level that teaches them the tools, the online accounting tools for how to manage their business? Because it simply isn't practical, particularly if you really are going to give a pitch to investors. I guarantee that my distinguished counterpart here is is going to want to see some things that are computed, and that seems like an important skill set.
Well, absolutely. And really what it was, I designed this really with the intent to teach my daughter how to become an entrepreneur. And so I watched with their attention spans. I watched how they worked on it and then maybe went to something else, whether it was developing their website online, et cetera. What it was really designed for, and the reason why the Padfolio and everything is included, is we still have the magic of our senses, and mom and dad is leaving to go to work with their Padfolio. The business plan is supposed to be that if they go onto the computer, it's so easy for them to work on it for a little bit and then forget that it's there, versus completing it and taking that ownership and walking out the door.
Well, Julie and Don, everybody can jump in here, but I think that if she's going to stick with this, my question is, should she use her daughter who went out and started her own business and market it as a way to reconnect with your kids? So if you're not going to give them some sort of video game, if you want to call it that, and if it's not going to be computer-based, then it should be marketed as something that helps build relationships, frankly.
Absolutely, which is key. I mean, networking in this day and age, particularly as a startup, is the foundation of the success of many small businesses. I mean, mine included. Without my network, I am absolutely nowhere. And a lot of that comes, I think, one of the things that you could be thinking about, Melissa, is very much what Dagan led into, which is using the example of your daughter and perhaps get some of the school friends of your daughter or neighborhood friends and try to get, a series, more than just one person. I mean, having your daughter as the case study, that's great, but people feel like there's a little home cooking going on and it's a little less credible than, if you were to go to school and maybe even do this on a, I'm not suggesting you give away all your product, but as a bit of a pro bono for the one school, so that you can show how it works and how kids of different age levels, how the 3 different levels work, the success that you can have. Now you've got something you can pitch. You've got something that is story-worthy from a PR perspective. PR is one of the most underestimated forms of marketing that are out there, and those are great stories that there's a ton of feel-good in there with small business that I think a lot of different publications and online AP would pick up. Then there's also the social networking standpoint. You can create small groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, of people who are having the same concern, and you could use this case study and then build a network through those areas to try to create more awareness for your product.
Don, I want to throw to you, but I'm a mother of 3, and I was a former high school teacher. To me, this screams high school classroom class project. I love to connect with my kids. This is not going to be how I'm going to do it. I would rather take my kids for ice cream and get this in a classroom and have these kids come up with a business, think, use their brains. I mean, this is so much better to hand to a high school kid than a textbook. Give this to them. Get this out there. I'm done. Maybe I'm totally off on this.
I completely agree. I think that one of the big things is we have to demystify, for most people who may not have an entrepreneurial history in their family, what it's like to start a business. The other side is that in American schools, entrepreneur is not one of the careers on career day.
Exactly.
Yeah, so something like this, I think, has an educational angle. I think it's about demystifying the whole process because it isn't that hard. It's one foot after another, and for a lot of families, it's very foreign to them. If no one in the family history has started a business, it's not part of the family tradition.
But even a freshman college class, right, John? Like, go do this. Go learn about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Things we've talked about. First of all, an entrepreneur partly does it so they can control what they're doing. So if you hate video games and you like paper, God bless you, you can do it. It's your business. As an advisor, though, I think the zero distribution costs of the electronics are very compelling if you're trying to make a business and make money. It also helps you to give stuff away in the beginning. If you wanted to sell this in the high schools, Tracy, you're going to have a hell of a time getting through the committees that accredit things. They don't like small businesses. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can take this directly to the Kaufman Foundation in Kansas City. They'll be all over this in a minute. They're dedicated to entrepreneurial research. You can also take it to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. They will help you to distribute this, I'm sure, because they want people in America to learn about building companies.
Sell it for me, Dan.
I wouldn't. Absolutely love this. I would definitely not rule out the online component though, because I can see kids getting in there and actually being able to create their own little virtual companies on this website, get to know each other, and build their little stores and build their brick and mortar companies, build their balance sheets and so on. And that the networking component between them, I think, would keep them consistently coming back because they love to chat online. That's becoming more the norm. And also, you can't really take advantage of social networking sites without having a place for these kids to go after. So I love the idea, but I would bring in that component, and I would look to selling to private schools that won't have the same rigid requirements that John was just talking about here a minute ago.
Danny, I think that is exactly the right thing to do. I mean, the online component, because kids love to start to compete with one another,
exactly.
but even in a fun way. And so if on their MySpace page or their Facebook page, they can have their business that they're starting. And I know that there was, Melissa was concerned about making it a computer game, but the more something feels like fun and feels like a game, the more engaged that they're going to be. At the end of the day, heck, all of us want it to be fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
As much as people whine about video games, research papers show people learn a ton by playing video games.
A ton.
All sorts of skills.
And your brain's going. I'm kind of all for it. So,
Danny, one final thought before.
I was just going to say, when I was 6, I had to write my own program to sell fake motorhomes to my brother at over crazy prices. And so, even at 6, I needed a program, and I had to write my own to do it on my Commodore 64. So, and it wasn't a game to me; it was a tool. So, I just think that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Melissa,
It's a great thing to do.
I hope that was helpful. And
absolutely.
And Melissa, we thank you so much for showing us Biz in a Box and being here with us on a Saturday. So please keep us posted on how things progress. Keep us
absolutely.
Email
thank
us. You can follow us on Twitter as well. Melissa Rose, thank you so much.
President this is even
Box Productions.
Melissa, though, I'm thinking out loud. This is even good for adults. It helps them think through the process. Am I thinking about the marketing, all the different angles? I mean.
When you think about business for dummies, this might be a lot more effective, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so Obama, Geithner, Paulson, we could teach these guys.
Yeah, Melissa, send it to D.C.
There's certainly a dearth of business people
no kidding.
in the government these days, but not a dearth of callers and folks emailing us. Doug is on the phone. He owns a heavy equipment company. He's called from Arizona. And Doug, we're excited to hear from you. What do you want to know?
Basically, I'm tired of listening to everybody whine about the economy. I look at it as this is the Great Recession. It's leveling the playing field for a lot of small businesses to compete against some of the bigger corporate entities that have evolved out there, but they're also very heavily laden.
Right.
I would like to find out, I'm debt-free. When it comes to getting loans and getting things like that, I'm not that inept in doing that. Should I look at individual, institutional lenders, to raise capital? Because I think, there's some heck of deals out there. Right. And when this baby turns around, there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Well, Doug, before you hang up, don't hang up. Can you be more specific on how that money will be deployed? That's critical.
I am going to be buying assets with it, but I am also looking for some flexibility because the economy right now stinks. Some people that might be able, or institution that might be able to, give me the money to go out and basically, there's heavy machinery out there being sold that you'd pay a thief more, than what you can go get some certain things for right now.
Yeah, John, you've always talked about that, but Danny, where does he go?
I would check out NASBIC. It's the National Association of Small Business Investment Companies. They have a list of people, organizations that are lending. Some are micro, some are peer-to-peer, some are bigger institutions. But then I would check out your local community banks. If you've got an established business, obviously you do in a particular area, then they're going to be more likely to know you and more likely to lend to you. The established businesses are the ones that are having an easier time getting money today than new businesses. So you're in a much better position than most people in this market. And I agree, John and I could not agree more with your no whining policy. So thank you.
Absolutely.
We don't whine. We're here about opportunity, but where should Doug go?
Whining's for tourists, absolutely. Doug's got a great business already and been smart enough in a heavy equipment business to run it without debt, because debt
I was going to give him a big woo-woo on that one.
So 5 stars for you. The asset-based finance is the eye of the hurricane that has killed the economy. Mm-hmm. And right now, if you're looking for money to buy asset deals, there ain't any. There will come a time, though, when the doors open back up. I suspect that's probably a year away or maybe even more. When that happens, you'll have very low prices, available money, and you'll have a record of not being in debt. You'll be in the front of the queue to take advantage of that. But Doug, I don't think you're going to find that right now, and the CIT bust is going to make that much tougher because they're a huge asset-based lender. In the private equity business, you make all of the money for a whole decade in 2 of the years of the decade, and those are the 2 years after a dead economy comes back to life, and that's probably 2010, 2011.
Don, quickly, we got to go to
Yeah, if I was advising you, I'd just say time your purchases. Don't try to buy all the equipment at 1 month. Do it over a long period of time. You don't know when you'll be able to get them all to full utilization. Don't try to pick the low point in the market.
Yeah, it's like, stuffing your shopping bags full at the
Just 'cause it's on
60%
sale.
off sale at Saks, and then you get the stuff home, and you're like, oh, I have credit card debt and clothes that I don't really need right now.
Or just because it's on sale sometimes, it doesn't mean it's cheap. All right, well, we got a lot more ahead, so stick around. This is your questions, your money on the Fox Business Network. Hey, happy Saturday. All right, we're going right to the phones. Melanie is on the phone from Florida. Hey, Melanie.
Hey, how are you?
What's your question?
We have a small family business in Fort Myers, Florida. This is where Obama visited because of the problem with the real estate market, and we have a television electronics business. My grandfather started it as hardware in 1906, and my dad bought it and turned it into television appliances in 1954. We've shown a profit every single year. My brother runs it now. My dad's 90 years old. My question is, first of all, just a small comment. It's very sad for my father at this age to see the business slowly dwindle down when every year there's been a profit. But because of the real estate market, it's not easy when you're selling dishwashers and appliances. And my brother runs the business. My question is, besides the giving away hot dogs and soon-to-be taxed, I guess, sugary drinks, what sort of marketing strategies might... My feeling is that we should really lay strong on the fact we've been around so long. But we're reducing, of course, our paychecks, our employee paychecks. We've always offered health insurance. And even though Florida has a tax benefits that other states don't, it's really tough. And this will be the first year that we won't show a profit after so many years. So,
Melanie, let's just toss your question out to Michael, who's in a different state, but certainly a similar situation. Michael, give Melanie some guidance here just from your own experience.
Sure. The number one thing, I think, is really watching your expenses. You have to really get creative. Go line by line through your P&L. Find places where you can save. It's not unusual. We've been in exactly the same boat. We've been profitable for our entire history. 2008 was the first time we took a real loss. And so you've got to get everybody involved in what they can do and save. In terms of promoting the fact that it's a family business, a local business, been around for a long time, I think that's a great idea. That resonates with people. It resonates with my business, and I'm in the cynical Washington, D.C. area. Certainly, I think it would resonate with people in your area. And I just wanted to respond to the previous question. I think we missed the part of the boat on answering him where we talked about that we forgot to talk about SBA financing. One of the great things to come out of the stimulus package is loosening restrictions on SBA financing that makes it programs. That, by the way, that may help Melanie as well.
Melanie, I have an idea for you. There's a community, a developer. If you send me an email, go to my website, thebabbgroup.com. I will get you the name of the developer. They're building, I thought this was the most stupid idea I had ever heard, but it might help your business. They're building about 10,000 homes right outside of Fort Myers, which #1 foreclosure capital in the nation. They're building a community of about 10,000 homes. I would get in contact with those builders. The biggest incentive that we see is granite counters, marble flooring, bathtubs, and televisions being given to people. So I would get a hold of them and see if you can make some sort of deal where they're trying to sell 10,000 homes in the next 2 years in this market, and they're going to need incentives for people to come in there and buy.
Melanie, thank you so much for calling, and thanks for all that great insight from Michael and Dani. But next hour, we're still talking about running your own business, starting one if you don't already have one. The phone number is 877-249-9626.
And you can always email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. And, of course, if you have to run out and get an errand and coffee or milk, listen to us on Sirius Channel 145 or XM Channel 168. We'll be right back. Happy Saturday. We're still here, and we're going to be here for another hour. This is the Fox Business Network. We're taking your questions about your money.
The phone number, 877-249-9626. The email address, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. And we were talking about Melanie, talking to Melanie, whose family started a television store, appliance store, in the early part of the last century, and how she was just asking how to cope with the economic downturn and how to market her business. And Julie, you were listening intently, and that's what you do for a living, is market.
Yeah, and it's, there's so many other aspects to, I think, her business. I was glad that we took more of a broad-based business view, because I think it's, a lot of times when people think they're in trouble or are in trouble, they want to think about, how do I market it quickly? And the first question really is, well, wait a second, let's look at the big picture. What else is going on?
Right.
Because it's hard to know what to market, what the message should be, if you can't get a grip on all the different aspects of your business. So it's not just an easy, I'll give you the magical answer. It sounds like for them, I do agree. I agreed with Michael that the 1954, been in business that long, in a period like this, people who are still around that many years later, that does give a sense of confidence to people. And for people who, I'm not certain what the turnover, maybe Dani knows more about the turnover rate in that town, but if you've got a lot of people who are endemic to the town, who've been there a long time, they want to help people who've been there with them through it all, who, they know their families. I mean, that is a very positive thing to do. In terms of trying to reach out, sometimes it's about going back to that crazy internet space and what are they doing to find, maybe there's people who've lived in Fort Myers that know the family that have moved elsewhere. I mean, it's about offering advice. It's about, we've been talking about customer service. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ways you can differentiate, which isn't so much about a promotional aspect, but it is about what is the consumer impression, and that everything speaks. And so what is the experience when they come into your store? And if you've cut back, don't cut back on that customer service experience.
Right. You will, if you develop a relationship, a personal relationship with your customers, those customers are certainly less likely to walk away from you when times get tough.
But how could that be, Dawn? If I can get a TV, a cheaper, the big box stores like Best Buy, I mean, I appreciate
I don't care. I don't care. I'm not going in those stores that they're going to treat me like dirt on their shoe.
One person.
No, I'm not. I am America.
No. America wants it cheap, girl.
No, they don't.
Well, yeah, I think there's two different demographics. Yeah. The ones that want it cheap and the ones that are willing to pay for it.
So I went in recently to an electronics retailer, and I was buying stereo speakers, and they said, we'll upgrade these, give you 100% credit on these speakers if you come back in a year with the receipt and the original package. Now, the probability that it prompted me to buy something I probably wouldn't have bought because I felt safe, ramping it up in a year. And I also thought, in all likelihood, I'm not going back with the receipt and I kept the packaging, but I'm not going back. So to Melanie, I think that the thought is to do things you haven't done before because these are on unique times. They might be this kind of upgrade that I talked about. It might be education that they hadn't offered before. It might be things that they just historically haven't sold. But something that says to a loyal customer base, which we all know is there, hey, take another look, consider this.
Dawn, thank you for being here. See, time flies, everybody. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much. Especially a big shout out to Michael Bray for joining us this hour. Also, Don Rainey. Julie Rame. Dani and John aren't going anywhere. We've only got 1 hour left, but time for you to pick up the phone. We will be right back.
Big politician telling lies.
From the heart of New York City all across this fine nation, this is the Fox Business Network. Welcome. Your questions, your money. I'm Dagan McDowell along with Tracy Burns. We want to hear from you because we're talking about doing it all by ourselves, bringing this economy back to life, starting, growing, building a business from the ground up, being inspired, and being just doggone excited about it.
Being America.
Tracy's making fun of me because I said I'm America. And what I meant was,
you are, honey.
If you build, you know, but you come from a family who ran a small business. I come from a family who ran a small business, and I am loyal to those businesses. And if you treat people right, I'm a big believer that if you build a relationship with someone, that they're not going to solely focus on cost. Not in this environment. I think people are seeing on the ground level the struggles and the hard work of business owners across this nation, and people will sacrifice a few dollars off the price of something if they know that they're going to be treated very, very well when they walk into, whether it's your store, whether it's your restaurant.
It's a tough economy.
So I'm not America, but I am crazy.
No, it's a tough economy because you got a lot of those big box retailers undercutting all the guys that get up and
my parents got put out of business by one. So they're not angry. They made mistakes. We're here about fixing mistakes.
We want to prevent that from happening. So put down your or pour more coffee and sit down and settle in and call us 877-249-9626. Email us your questions at yourmoney@foxbusiness.com.
Our next guest started selling beer out of a GMC van about 20 years ago. And last year, he sold more than 1 million cases of it. $18 million in revenue, expecting sales to grow by double digits this year. He is Steve Hendy, one of the founders of the Brooklyn Brewery, and he is in studio, ready to take your questions. But first, Steve, we just want to hear the story. Yeah. I know the story, and I know the product very well. But again, it just starts with an idea. You were a journalist, and it starts with an idea and a recipe, some fire, and a good partner.
That's right. I was a journalist for 15 years, and the last 6 were in the Middle East for Associated Press. So it was the early 80s. I covered a lot of big stories, the Iranian Revolution, Iran-Iraq War, the wars in Lebanon. I was sitting behind President Sadat when he was killed in Cairo. But the biggest impact on my life was meeting American diplomats who had been based in Saudi Arabia, where they have Islamic law. You can't buy alcoholic beverages. Right. These guys all made their own beer at home. And eventually my wife got fed up with being the wife of a war correspondent and declared she was going back to New York and taking the kids, and she hoped I'd join, but if not, have a nice life. So I decided in favor of my family. I came back to New York, started making beer at home, serving it to friends and neighbors, and eventually my downstairs neighbor, Tom Potter, who was a banker, and I quit our jobs and started the Brooklyn Brewery. That was 21 years ago.
Other than picking a partner who could handle one side of the business while you handled another, you also made some very critical decisions early on, and one of them being self-distributing.
That's right. That's right. There were a couple of key things we did early on which were decisive. One was actually, we interviewed about 30 designers before we found a designer who we thought could capture the idea of Brooklyn. We were fortunate to make a deal with Milton Glaser, the fellow who did the I Love New York logo, and he's done a million other things you'd recognize. So Milton became a partner in our company and did all our design work. That really helped us raise money early on. And then with distribution, we had an entrepreneur on our block in Brooklyn, a woman named Sophia Collier, who started a company called Soho Natural Soda. And it was really the forerunner of all the challenges to Coke and Pepsi. So Sophia gave us advice one Saturday morning, and she said, you know, you guys got a great product, you got a great label, it's all cool, but you're not going to succeed unless you distribute your own beer. And I remember thinking, distribute beer in New York City? I can hardly afford my car insurance. I'm going to insure trucks, and what about parking tickets? And what about the mob? We are in Brooklyn after all. And she said, yeah, there are a lot of problems out there, but when you're small, nobody's going to pay any attention to you. You just put the beer in the truck and go out there and peddle it. And that's what we did. And I think if we had not done that, we would have gone the way of about 20 other startups in the last 20 years in New York City that have failed, I think mostly because of distribution. I'm talking about beer startups. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to hop to a break, but I want to know, when we get back, what made you even think about going out there when you have the Budweisers of the world, the Millers of the world, you have these huge, huge competitors, and you say, I got a better product.
Steve, before you answer that, because we just have to, I want to hear the answer, we just have to take a breath.
And then you got to tell us about the stuff with the pop top.
Yeah, exactly. But right now, it's 6 minutes after the hour. Time to welcome our radio listeners on Sirius and XM. I'm Dagan McDowell, everybody, along with Tracy Burns.
And if you have a question about starting your own small business, big business, any entrepreneurial questions, call us, email us. yourmoney@foxbusiness.com and the phone number 877-249-9626. We are focusing on small businesses this hour, entrepreneurialism. So get those calls in. And our panel, standing by, Richard Fox, Managing Director at Cross Atlantic Capital. We have Bob Coleman, a small business analyst and head of Coleman Publishing. And, of course, Steve Hindy, still in studio. Brooklyn Lager is going to tell us the whole story. And John and Danny are still here to answer your questions, and they are chock full of information.
So, Steve, you can answer Tracy's question now.
After all that. So what gave you the chutzpah to say I could take on Budweiser?
You know, we didn't really set out to take on Budweiser or Coors or Miller. But both Tom Potter, my original partner, and I were drinking imported beer mostly back in the early 80s.
So that's
and
like
we
Beck's,
decided,
all those guys.
Yeah, well, we had both traveled in Europe and tasted what beer could be, and you know, after making beer at home, decided, well, we can make beer as good as these imports, and let's go up against them. We're not going to challenge Anheuser-Busch. We're challenging Beck's and you know, Corona and all the imported beers. And it's worked out very well for us. When we started 21 years ago, the national brewers had about 95% of the market. That's the big American brewers. Imports were about 3 or 4%. Today, imports are about 13 or 14%. Craft beer, which wasn't even on the radar 20 years ago, is now about 4 to 6%. And the national brewers are 80%.
Can you explain what craft beer is quickly?
Well, craft beer is made, first of all, by a small brewer. And it's made by an independent brewer, meaning it's not owned by a big company that's not a craft brewer. And its fundamental beers are traditional in style. That's the definition.
How has the landscape changed in recent years as you've had the massive consolidation among the big brewers with InBev buying Anheuser-Busch, Miller, Coors now? Has it changed more in your favor?
I think it has, Dagan. The fact that they went from 95% to 80% explains why these consolidations are happening. Because overall, the beer market has been kind of flat or even down a little in the last 20 years. But the better beer segment, meaning imported beers and craft beers, has been growing very rapidly. And actually, this year, I'm happy to report our sales are surging. And I think most craft brewers are having the same experience. In spite of being a little more expensive than the big beers, people are drinking more of our kind of beer.
Well, because it's a simple pleasure, I think that you can still afford. And I, too, am American. But there is a dramatic taste, I think, differential in the American beers versus, the craft beers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Craft beer is all about diversity, variety. It's about the rainbow of flavors and styles that the big American brewers kind of ignored for many, many decades. And we found a niche, and we've really built it. The most exciting brewing in the world today is happening in the United States.
Now, I have to ask, how did you just go home and make beer?
Well, you can make beer at home.
Clearly.
I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just...
You just said one day I could do this?
Well, it's barley, hops, water, and yeast.
Right.
I mean, it's not that much different than making bread. Right. So, yeah, you can make beer at home. But I like to think there are so many great beers available now that it's not really necessary for you to go make beer at home. Just buy my
not.
beer.
You should buy Brooklyn Lager.
Steve, you sold the distribution business about 5 years ago or so. Why did you do that, and where does that leave you today?
Well, you know, we went into distribution out of necessity.
Right.
I mean, believe me, I did not like running a trucking company in New York City. Our last year in business, we spent $60,000 on parking tickets in New York City. I mean, more than we spent on gasoline, if you can believe that. So we never intended to stay in that business long term. And the value of that business became significant after about 15 years. So we were happy to sell it to the big distributors and, you know, focus only on our brand. It was very difficult running two different companies for all those years. We distributed not only our own beer, but also other American microbrews and virtually all of the fancy beers from Belgium, Germany, and Britain. And actually that was a real benefit to us because we visited all those breweries and got to know the world's great brewers, and that really inspired us to make even more interesting beer here in the U.S.
I just love these stories.
Love every word of them. We're hanging on every
I
word.
know, I know.
A shout out to everybody listening and watching. Steve is here. He can answer questions about mistakes you made, maybe, as well. How he got financing, where the growth opportunity is, marketing, because this is one logo that jumps out at you.
It sure does.
So why aim low? He got one of an incredibly famous illustrator to do it from the get-go and gave him a piece of the business, right? So call in, please. Right. Almost a full hour, 50 minutes, thereabouts, questions and answers to your questions about running and growing your fabulous business and making it more fantastic. More when we come back.
Saturday, everybody. Your questions, your money. We're going to go straight to the calls. We got Nikki on the phone from Florida. Nikki, we've been talking a lot about your state tax-free zone down there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this afternoon?
We're great. What's your question?
Well, my question is about, I'm an artist. I'm artist Nikki from Central Florida, and my question is about online marketing. Since we started feeling the recession in 2008, we've been looking at getting more pillars under our business, one being online marketing of all of our artwork and prints and what have you. And we've been doing a lot of web broadcasting, pods, seminars, things like that online, and we're part of the social networks. But I'm looking to increase the website traffic more and more. We are improving, but it's just so slow. I'm wondering if there are any other advice that your panel's got.
Dani Babb.
Yeah, well, first of all, Nikki, what I would do is make sure that your website is Web 2.0 driven. What that means is that it's community oriented, and there's a reason that people want to stick around on the site. So this might require a $3,000 to $5,000 investment. I'd be happy to give you a couple of referrals if you shoot me over an email. I would make this, there's a couple of ways to do this. One is using tools called Joomla, and basically you're going to try to create a community where your website is still selling something, selling or promoting your product, but people want to stick around there for a while. They have a private messaging system and so on. And then I would also take this another step further and make sure that you are on every type of social networking platform out there, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc., and use the hashtags in Twitter so that you can draw people into your business that have similar interests, and people will find you that way because the hashtags are kind of one of the search criteria that a lot of the third-party tools use now. So I would begin there, but I would just make sure that the website is really reflecting what you want it to be, and then try to draw as many people to it using blogs, forums, posting out there by being an expert, inspiring other people to pursue their passions and dreams, which will then bring more traffic to your site as an expert. And there are tons and tons of ways. I've got a list of about 50 of them on my own website that you can check out.
Yeah. Steve, how'd you get your name out there?
Or how are you using online, too,
well,
now?
that, too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I used to be a reporter.
It comes in handy on occasion, doesn't it?
What's a reporter do? You go out and report, and then you try to get your story on the front page of the newspaper. So everything we've done with Brooklyn Brewery from day one has been angled toward the media, toward getting attention in print media and electronic media. And it really works because if you become a good source for news stories and ideas, it kind of builds on itself.
And are you using the web now?
We've had a website for many years. I don't think we've used it as well as we could have. It does get a lot of traffic. But actually, I just hired a marketing manager who worked for The Onion. Do you know The Onion newspaper? Very popular among younger people. And he's got some great ideas about how to stretch the capability of the website. So I'm really relying on him to guide me through that.
John, if you can't do it yourself, then you go find somebody who can.
Great. It's a great idea, and if they're 20 years old, so much the better, because you've got to bring the people in who know how to do the stuff you want them to do. I once owned and was chairman of a company that sold art. We had 100 retail stores, but we also sold on the internet, and I'll tell you, the internet's a hell of a lot easier way to sell art than opening up bricks and mortar. But as we've been saying, you need to become the authority of this sector so people will come to you for advice, and then when they come to you for advice and hang around, like Dani said, they'll buy things and you can sell them things. You have a source, an authority. It's the energy of the customer coming to you want to trigger, not forcing information out to them like the old days.
Give them tools. Let them chat with each other. Let them send messages to each other. Let them have their own community, set up links to their own MySpace accounts. That's what it's about.
Using the web. I don't know how you can't these days. All right, we're going to go to commercial. We want to give a shout out to our radio listeners on Sirius Channel 145 and XM 168.
We still have plenty of time for your questions. Call us 877-249-9626 or send us an email, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. Fox Business Network, the network of opportunity, and in true HD.
This is a small town. I was a dreamer before you and let me down. Now it's too late for you and your white horse to come around.
Is jumping today, and I got to tell you, I got to comment on those chairs again. It kills me that there's chairs in the middle of the street in Times Square, but that's all I'm saying.
From the heart of New York City, exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
But it's about doing business across this country. We want to get to a quick an email. Mario writes in, is there a limit to what the SBA will loan to start a convenience store or eatery like a Wawa or a Subway? How do you go about partnering with national brands? Those are two questions. But first, about SBA loans. Bob, that's why we have you here. That is all that you write about. Fill in.
Dagan and Tracy, thank you very much for asking me. SBA has an upper limit of $2 million, which should be sufficient to be able to handle that type of request. Probably the better question is, how much money do you need to put into that type of deal? Lenders today, obviously, in our economy, have a little bit of tighter credit box. They want more of the borrower's money into the deal. So you're looking at minimum of 10%, upward of 33%, depending on the type of franchise that is being utilized by the borrower.
What about the availability of credit in this environment to start or buy a franchise, Bob?
Yeah, that's difficult. SBA lending is down 56% compared to last year. You know, all small business lending is down. Deals, though, are starting to be done. You have to give credit where credit is due. The stimulus package is starting to work in SBA. SBA increased the guarantee that the government offers to the lenders from 75% to 90%. That's increased lending just in the last quarter from 8,000 loans to 12,000 loans. So you're starting to see a little bit of a loosening of credit. So that's good. But obviously it's tough. It is still tough in today's market to get that type of financing to start those type of projects.
But Steve, I'm curious how you started how you financed to start out with, but the availability of credit to you now, because you are borrowing money as we speak.
That's right. We never had any debt.
So from the get-go, no
right.
debt. We borrowed on your house?
No, we raised money from colleagues, friends. You know, the idea of being part of a brewery is kind of exciting. You have to be sort of crazy to invest in it, I think, but it's an attractive idea. And we raised money, the first $500,000. Actually, I raised $110,000 from my colleagues at Newsday, a newspaper here in New York. And you know, reporters don't make a lot of money.
Not at all.
But they tend to be kind of crazy.
And they love beer.
And they love beer.
We do, because that's all we could afford in the beginning.
So they bet on me, and actually it worked out well for them. They had a chance to get out about 5 years ago for 5 times what they invested.
Wow.
So it worked out well. Eventually, though, we had a couple of big investors who were in at the beginning, but they became our primary source of capital. So we've never borrowed money. We're borrowing it'll be between $3 and $5 million now to build a new brewery in Brooklyn with 5 times the capacity of what we have now. And that's from TD Bank, you know, a very good bank here in New York and in the Northeast. And we're really excited about this.
So this is your first loan, ostensibly?
That's right. We did finance our receivables when we had the distribution company, but you know that was a revolving credit line, which was pretty easy to get. Right.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
That's one of the businesses that CIT Group was in. I want to go out to Richard Fox of Cross Atlantic, because you're in the funding business, but venture funding, private equity funding. And what about the availability of money? Because you specialize in particularly medical companies.
Clearly, money is tight right now. And venture capitalists and other private equity people are really trying to figure out what to do with their portfolios and how to create some liquidity. But you know, for new opportunities, and this beer opportunity was a fantastic story. There's always seemingly capital available.
John, you know, we had Giorgio Collage on, a famous Familia Pizza, a while ago, and he said that their family's motto was, if we can't afford it, we can't pay cash, we're not doing it. That's not, unfortunately, an option for a lot of small businesses.
Not if you don't have the cash. That's for sure.
So then that holds your expansion thoughts, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a very tough time, as Richard said. You know, the SBA does not loan money to businesses. The SBA are guys you talk to who will give you a list of banks to go and talk with. And then if the bank will loan you the money, they'll guarantee part of it.
Right.
But right now, the problem is the banker doesn't want to talk to you. So there's very little money available. The last 9 years in a row, the largest SBA lender in America was CIT. They're the largest investor for buying and investing in franchises. They're the largest lender for startups of small businesses. On Friday, the federal government pulled the rug out from under their talks, and on Monday, they're likely to fold.
Right.
So that's a huge, huge dent in the sources of financing. So right now, scrambling to stay alive and liquid with working capital is the name of the game. Like our friend from Fort Myers who called in, you've got to keep the inventory on the floor, the doors open, and the people on the floor servicing the customers to get to the other side of this financing.
Bob, you've written about this extensively. Is there any sign that banks and other lenders will step up to fill the void of a CIT?
You know, if you look at the top 50 lenders, only 25% of them have an increase in volume from this year over last year. So do you see signs of that increasing? Not yet. I mean, you see the green shoots. You see some positive things happening. Wells Fargo has really stepped up to the plate. They will become the nation's #1 SBA lender. But there's very few of those banks that have stepped up to replace what will be the drop in CIT lending.
There was also a second part to that question that had come up.
Right, thank you.
And that was the partnering with the bigger companies. Generally, that's done via franchising, and so you would just go to their website. There's usually a button. You want to become, you know, franchisee. You click the button, fill out the information. Somebody will contact you and give you some info. Generally, for like I think Subway was mentioned.
Wawa.
Wawa, $250,000 is generally what we would be looking for, and that would fall under a variety of the loans from the that the SBA would guarantee. If you are a veteran, then you should absolutely look at the Patriot loan, which is the Patriot-backed loan, which is the cheapest money that you can get from a bank that's SBA-backed. But the CDC 504 loan is typically what somebody in that market would do.
That was incredible advice all the way around, right?
It's very scary, though, what's happening with CIT, John. You're right.
Yeah,
and
tough.
It's going to hurt our small businesses.
It's because, well, it was because of the lousy loans that it made, right?
Big
Subprime
time.
lending.
Big time. Yeah, packaging, repackaging.
Keep those calls and emails coming. We're taking a breath. But so much more time to talk. 877-249-9626.
And you can always email us, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. This is the Fox Business Network. We're up and happy on a Saturday in True HD, and we got 30 minutes left, so call us.
And
get in
the
touch.
pitch.
And the pitch. My favorite graphic on the network.
The pitch.
$500 if you hit something or someone.
It is time for the pitch. If you drive, I was listening, I was enraptured. If you drive, you've seen this. People driving while texting, even though we know it is incredibly dangerous and illegal, people still do it. Well, our next guest wants to do something about that. For today's pitch, Matt Howard is here, founder of ZoomSafer. This is your chance, Matt, here to pitch your business to Richard Fox from Cross Atlantic Capital. So go ahead, pitch away, and explain what it is, because we're fascinated, especially Tracy.
Because I was texting the whole way to work this morning, but don't tell anybody.
Right. Well, thanks for having me. ZoomSafer is software for mobile phones to prevent distracted driving. And I founded the company back in January because I'm personally a BlackBerry addicted person and found myself behind the wheel of my car increasingly making bad decisions. This past fall, for example, I was going to work one morning and I got an email as I was pulling out of the driveway. I looked down, I look up, and a split second later I had a 9-year-old boy in front of me on his bike, and I almost killed him. I mean, it was a really dangerous situation. Fortunately, I didn't hit him. He was okay, but it kind of shook me to the core and caused me to kind of evaluate my own behavior. So I really started to look for some solutions in the market that could help me make better decisions when I'm driving. I didn't find anything, so I got together with a couple of my buddies, and we architected a product and a service and built a company called ZoomSafer to help people be more focused and safer when they drive. It's a huge, huge problem. Last year in this country, there were over 600,000 accidents in the United States as a result of distracted driving, 3,000 deaths at a cost of $40 billion to the economy. So we're just really excited with ZoomSafer to be in a position to deliver some innovative software to help people, both consumers and corporations both, be more focused and safer when they drive.
Matt, tell us how it works really quickly, or more importantly, tell Richard how it works.
Yeah, it's simple. It's software that installs on your mobile device, easy as an iPhone app that you would download and install. Basically what it does at that point is it detects speed. So if you're in your car moving faster than 10 miles an hour, we'll essentially activate the application automatically. And we do a couple of things. We lock the screen, and we also play an audio file to remind the driver to be focused and safe, right? And this is kind of the modern equivalent of the seatbelt reminder, the ding, ding, ding. So it's context for the driver to be focused. But there's a whole other issue here, which is your network externally, your friends, your family, your contacts. And they have to know that you're driving. And so one of the things that the application and the service does is it automatically, for example, updates Facebook status, Twitter. It gives you an opportunity to automatically notify others externally that, hey, you know what, I'm driving right now, so I'm kind of preoccupied and busy. So to the extent that somebody were to communicate to you while you were driving, they would receive an automatic text reply from the service saying, hey, so-and-so is now driving while focused on the road safely with ZoomSafer. You can get it too. And on the driver's side, that inbound alert would have been suppressed, so they would not have been distracted. So those are just a couple of examples. There's a full video on our website. If anybody's interested, you can go and check it out to sort of see the complete user experience. But that'll give you a flavor.
Let's listen to the alert before we go to Richard. Can we listen to it?
I'm sorry?
No, they're going to play it.
Hi, Daddy.
on the road. Bye.
Oh, that's a killer. That's a killer.
Richard, go ahead and ask any questions that you might have or weigh in here.
Well, I thought, look, we're in the business of solving problems, and clearly this is text messaging while driving is clearly a problem. I guess I had a number of questions. The first question is, how is this monetized? Is it a free service, and how do you expect to make money from it? And then the second question, which is a little bit more...
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Richard, go ahead and ask your second question. Richard, go ahead.
The other question is, does your service stop all text messaging going on in cars, for example, for other passengers?
Right. So, two great questions. I'll take the first one, monetization. So there's 3 monetization strategies. I mean, we really believe, by the way, that it's important to make this solution available to as many people as possible in society. So it is a free application at the baseline, so anyone can come and take it. You know, come one, come all. Use it for good, right? Within that freemium sort of portion of the market, there's a bunch of interesting opportunities for us to monetize, from sponsorship to ads. The other opportunity for monetization is essentially a premium subscription where we have some enhanced features, voice-based service features that would be available to a premium subscriber at $5 per month. And then perhaps one of the really big opportunities for us to monetize is in the commercial market with large companies who have large fleets of employee-owned company-owned vehicles and company-owned BlackBerries who have people on the road every day driving and are looking for ways to minimize liability. So those are sort of 3 areas for monetization. The question about the passenger in the car, so if the passenger's in the car or in a train or in a bus, the application would, of course, detect speed, and it would activate on that person's device. And if they were interested in using sending a text, they would simply turn it off. But the application would essentially ask, you know, are you sure you want to do this? Because, you know, unless you're a passenger, it's probably not a good idea. So there's context for that as well.
Richard?
I think one of the issues that you're going to face is that this is a behavioral issue. A lot of people want to be able to text message, even though it's illegal. It's not enforced. So the question is, in my opinion, in my mind, is to will insurance companies somehow get in the fracas, so to speak, and start providing discounts or mandates for this type of software?
So one thing I think it's really important to understand is, from our perspective, we completely agree with you. And I'm the founder of the company. As I said before, I mean, I'm a type A, mobile device addicted person myself, right? So I understand the importance of having, freedom of will, so to speak, to send a text when I want, where I want, even if it's against the law. So there is the option to opt out of the software for the driver, but he or she is going to think twice about doing that because it's a bad idea. And as long as we can give them a little bit of context, we think it's going to move the dial a little bit. So you're absolutely right. This is an experience that has to blend sort of the need for safety with the need for modern connectivity. And if you get the balance right, you really can begin to, I think, change behavior a little bit, similar to the way seatbelt behavior changed in this country back in the mid to late 1970s. So I completely agree with you. It's not a binary Big Brother approach to the solution that we're taking. In fact, it's very much of a balanced approach. We're really trying to give people context so they make better decisions and drive safer.
Matt, you got to tell him how much money you want, because you've already raised $500,000. Wow.
We are very fortunate right now in that sense that we're working with a very committed angel with appetite. But at the same time, this is a massive market opportunity, and we know that to go after this and get it big, we're going to have to go out and raise some equity capital. So we're looking at raising about $1.5 million in the first quarter of next year. With that capital, what we'll do is we're going to build out the application across the full spectrum of mobile devices. Right now, we're launching our public beta next month on the BlackBerry. We'll be tackling the iPhone, Windows Mobile, and Android thereafter, but likely we'll need some equity capital to do that. So we're looking at $1.5 million first quarter of next calendar year, next year.
Richard, is the money out there for him?
I think on this kind of an idea that has significant scalable market potential, I think that there is possibly money or potential money available for this type of idea, because if it catches on, it can be huge. The product itself seems to a little bit like flight mode that you might have on your phone now for airplanes, where I'm sure all of you have been you've experienced stewardesses saying, "Turn your phones off or put them in flight mode." So if there was some way, and I'm not sure what the way is, but if there's some way that you could get people to generate the behavior to turn off their text messages while driving and create some monetization ability, this could be a very interesting deal.
John, hop in.
When they tell you to turn off your phone, you just put it in your pocket, right? Because it's a stupid rule. But, and I'm sure Steve can agree that texting, drinking beer, and driving together is a great idea, right? But I'm interested. I think this is a great idea. I think this is a financeable business. But I also think that there's a market here, as you said, for the fleet owners, because their biggest issue is the safety of their fleet and the cost of insuring them. If you can get a fleet owner to go and work out a deal with an insurance company to install these and then track the behavior of the driver and then build that behavior into a compensation system at the fleet owner, you will end up having something you could monetize right out of the savings of the corporate business. I'd go to the trucking companies like Arkansas Best, and I would talk with them because they will exactly know the costs I'm talking about.
Steve, you want to hop in?
You know, I like getting paid for my product, though. I don't understand why all these web-based businesses do not charge. And the idea that they're all gonna get ads, I think it doesn't work. And newspapers got in a terrible mess by putting all their content on the wire on the web for free.
That's a fair point.
Well, in the web, you know, the biggest thing that we see out there is the upsell, which is exactly what I think Matt's trying to do. Personally, I think this is the most sellable idea we've ever had on this show since it started.
Yes.
I think it's a fantastic idea, even though the product would drive me nuts. I wouldn't personally use it. I think it's fantastic. You solve a significant problem for people, which is if you're an OCD person like me who gets immediately back to someone and they don't understand why you're not immediately replying back. Like you, I got in a pretty gnarly accident chasing my lovely Trio, which had slid underneath the seat, and I went underneath an SUV as a result of it. So I can certainly see the usefulness of this product. It's terrific. I would just make sure that you keep the integration going, which it sounds like you are with Twitter and Facebook. That's fantastic for the Gen Yers. I would also really nail on that insurance aspect that was mentioned, because I think if people can get a 5% discount by using your product, even if they shut the thing off, that doesn't mean that your numbers don't look like 200 million people are using it, and therefore your base of ad revenue is going to go up. I love it.
Why don't you get Allstate to give it to their policyholders for free to install on your app? Allstate will pay you.
I love it. And to me, the clincher is to have your kids say, "Mommy, stop texting." Oh, I got three of them that'll be yelling at me.
Matt, that certainly has emotional resonance with parents. No,
it does.
Parents are even people who don't have children like myself. You learn the hard way, and you'll pay attention.
Yeah,
in the future.
context is really important in what we think changes behavior. So on the personal side and on the network side, both.
Matt, it was such a pleasure for you to be here. Matt Howard,
Thank you very much
Zoom
for the
Safer is the company. You have to keep us up to date on what's going on development, expansion, and financing.
Yeah,
Matt
clearly
Howard.
I need it, Matt. Clearly.
Matt
I'm
Howard.
your first customer.
Zoom Safer. I can attest to that because I get emails from Tracy Burns all the time. I'm like, where are you? She's like, in my car, in my minivan. Shame on you, Tracy. Shame.
Bad.
Remember, so that got Danny's thumbs up is the best idea that we've heard so far on this show. But there are many fantastic ideas out there. So if you have one, we want to hear from you. If you want to pitch to a venture capitalist, we will bring you on this show. All you have to do is email us. Let us know. This could be the opportunity of a lifetime on the network of opportunity. Send us an email. We're here every Saturday. yourmoney@foxbusiness.com. We're going to take a quick break. Tracy Burns, yourmoney@foxbusiness.com, or the phone number. You see it. There's still time to call. We will be right back. straight to the phones. That's what we're about, answering your questions. And Bob has called in from Hawaii. Good morning, Bob.
Aloha.
Good to hear from you. Aloha.
Aloha.
Or howdy. So from Virginia to Hawaii. Bob, what do you want to know?
Well, my question is for John and Danny. I saw a piece online where you guys helped a business owner, I think it was like a pet shop or something. You helped her reduce her starting cost from like $140,000 down to like, I don't know, $5 or something. And I'm currently trying to open a business, and I have a business plan, but I need to reduce my initial startup costs so that I can get funding as well. What areas should I begin looking at?
Yeah, thanks for calling, Bob. This is if anybody wants to check
mahalo.
this out. Mahalo, no, aloha. If anybody wants to check this out, look at the entrepreneur's website. It is mypamperedpoochusa.com. This is a lady. John and I went out to a suburb of Atlanta. We worked with her for 5 days. She was she's getting huge pieces out of it. About 150 spots are airing this weekend, and then several more pieces will be airing over the next couple of weeks. And actually, during the coming segments, we're going to walk people through how to reduce your startup costs, which is a really important thing for lots of people trying to get business today or go into business today. But generally, we looked at her startup costs were about $147,000. We reduced it to about $30,000, and we did it a number of ways. First of all, we beat the heck out of vendors to try to get the cost lower. Second of all, we went and attacked the commercial leasing agents and tried to get the lease for much less money than she was originally planning for. We went after equipment, computers, point of sale stuff that she had in for $5,000, $10,000. We were able to find on Craigslist and eBay and get the price way down. We eliminated the need for the accountant and some of the professionals that she had in there because of the free online resources. So we went in that plan item by item and really reduced that. And you can check out the full piece on both of our websites, which is drdanibabb.com and rutledgecapital.com.
Yeah, these days, working capital is the hard thing to get. So anything you can do to shrink your need for working capital in the beginning or defer it until later. So if you can get a lease on a property that doesn't charge you for the first 6 months or a year, you can use that not charge as a way of financing your business in the front rather than having to take on an obligation from somebody. And this is a lady that actually started a fruit stand to sell tomatoes to make enough money to start her business. It's an Air Force veteran. We love these kind of businesses, and doing it for less money and anything that gets the first dollar of revenue in the door faster will make it possible to start a company.
Steve, really quickly, because you've used this downturn to your advantage in terms of getting your real estate costs down, right? In terms of getting your rent down or keeping it down, rather.
That's right. We've been searching for 5 years for a new location to expand our brewery. And, there's a real boom in real estate in New York City and Brooklyn in particular in the last 5 years. And we were really at our wits' end. But since the economy tanked last year, landlords have been much more reasonable. And actually, I just signed an extension of my current lease for 15 years yesterday. And we've got 2 other leases I'm going to sign in the next couple of weeks for a lot less money than they were asking for a year ago.
Wahoo!
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Real stories
Silver
from the front
lining.
lines of business.
Yeah, silver lining to something. All right, unfortunately, we have to take a break because I'm loving these conversations. But up next, we got final thoughts on today's topic, the entrepreneurial blue flame coming out of your butt. We'll be right back.
Welcome back quickly to the phones. Robert from Maryland. Robert, good of you to join us. What do you want to know?
Yes. I have a software development company. Mainly I design high-end databases, mostly for the government. I designed a system that I demoed to a large government contractor. I'm going to keep the name to myself right now. The Chief Technology Officer and the Senior VP of Strategy both love the product. The Senior Technology Officer, or the Chief Technology Officer, requested 2 changes to the system. The first change I am in process of doing. The second change is going to require a massive infusion of capital. I do not have this capital. I have never dealt with venture capital or anything else. I have no idea where to even start.
We came to the right place. Should we start with Bob? Should we talk the loan angle first, Bob?
That's an interesting proposition. The interesting thing about SBA is they have some very unique programs that this gentleman can take advantage of. They have something called a contract line of credit. If you have a contract with the federal government, SBA will guarantee a bank to advance against that contract. This is a perfect situation that you may want to take advantage of. Especially if you have that contract with the government. There's creative things you can do, and that's a perfect thing for SBA. Just one more quick thought. The nice thing about that also is there's not, you don't have any collateral for that. And SBA and the bank are strictly going to be looking at the contract to have that paid off. So I would look into that if I were you.
John Rutledge, Mr. Moneybags.
I always like to get the money for a new product from the customer that's already decided they're going to buy it from you. You're selling this, I believe, to a contractor to the government, not to the government itself. That contractor has working capital sources already that are cheaper and more plentiful than yours. If they really want to do this, have them front you the development cost and then work it off out of the contract to them. And you don't have to talk to any bankers or any of those other nasty people that don't want to give you money today.
They're not nasty if you're looking for money.
And Richard, you're not nasty.
No, you have to be not. What I'm saying is you have to be nice. You have to smile and act like you love them.
You got to smile.
Richard, you're not nasty. What would you say to all this?
Well, this kind of is an elegant problem in my vocabulary because he's got it sounds like he's got a customer, and he's got to raise capital. So if he's got a customer, it's a very good start. And I would strongly suggest, and I think his question was how do I go about getting venture capital? And the first thing is to really think out well a business plan and have a very strong elevator statement as you go present your plan. So the first thing I would strongly suggest is spend a lot of time concentrating on writing a very well-defined business plan.
And by the way, Mark Suster was here from GRP Partners and gave us a rundown of the elevator pitch. You can go to the Fox Business website and watch it. It's on there. Just put in Suster, S-U-S-T-E-R. But Dani Babb is right here live.
Robert, I have one idea for you. It kind of piggybacks a little bit off of what John said. When I ran a software development team, one of the things that we did when we had clients coming in asking for intranet applications that were also database driven or extranet applications to do fulfillment is make sure we basically gave them a prepackaged product that was functional for what they needed initially. They started to use the product. Later on, we did a bill of materials, and we actually broke out every component that they wanted in terms of the development aspect. We added that on later. We brought them in as a client. We're able to show it as capital, as a revenue, and then built it out and charged them per hour, and of course marked up the development fee. So it's kind of what John was saying, but I would actually give them, if they're willing to do so, a delivered product, sans this one particular component, and then bring in the rest later.
Steve, you got any last words of advice for our viewers?
Last words of advice. Well,
drink beer.
Words of inspiration.
Drink Brooklyn Lager.
That's a great businessman.
Yeah, there you go.
You're always selling.
You got a product, stick to it, get out there.
ABS, always be selling.
Yeah.
But seriously, we've got a minute.
You know, one interesting thing that's happened to us in the last couple of years, you remember the blackout? I think it was 2003 or 4.
Well,
after that, at the time we were being pitched by a windmill company, Community Energy. They wanted us to buy electricity from them through the windmills. And we were kind of dithering. We thought it'd be a good thing to do, the right thing to do, but the blackout really turned us around and said, okay, we're going to do this. When we did it, it's unbelievable the reaction we got from customers. They love it.
It's interesting. Hardship puts that little boom under you.
But is there anything better if you can cut your costs, save money, and you have an entirely new marketing angle? Steve, it was a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. So thankful that you were here today. I want to thank everybody. Steve Hendy, Richard Fox, Bob Coleman, and Dani Babb and John Rutledge. That's all we have time for, everybody. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We will see you next week.
Get your ball now.